Yeah. It so we had the pre-market and then of course the dump. So yeah, we kind of go through it one by one. I would say I was generally speaking, I was rather disappointed. It didn't it didn't behave the way that I would like, but I don't get a say in it. So all right, we'll start here with the ES and kind of what we called out ahead of time and ultimately what it ended up doing or not doing. In this case, I feel like we had a lot of not doings today. It just didn't happen. So pre-market, we had started off. I was up super early this morning, just not sleeping. So I started kind of posting in our little chart cast thing right about 6:35 this morning. So we had some key levels that we're aware of, and we had found a decision point here that broke just after the news. So this was a news candle today. I don't think anybody was actually trading this, just because again it was so early in the day. But either way, they had it on Chartcast if they were following along. But right at the start, it did hit our has to hold nearly to the tick, and then dropped, came back to revisit the decision point. This is again this is the type of moves that we're after day in and day out. But it was all pre-market, so a little disappointing when it happens without you. But either way, came back, didn't quite make it to the decision point, hit first target, and not quite second. So really, here's our 920 bar. So we're starting off. Market's already, performed a pretty sizable move up from the overnight. It's already hit a target, and we're starting to open the room here around 920 with a doji candle. So the general conversation was, again, there wasn't much to do here in the first start of the morning, only because at that time they still could have actually come up, hit target 2 and certainly target 3, and I would have preferred this simply because they had a really pretty big picture has to hold resting way up here. So that would have been nice. That would have given us a pretty awesome counter trend, but nevertheless, didn't do that. So 930 starts, 935, and it just dumped. It just flat out dumped. Now I did mention, because again, we're part of this scenario. So I kind of drew this block over here just to kind of give folks a reference that we're inside this block at the moment. So if or until we re-break back below that decision point, then the upside is still on because that's what it's going to take. And that if it does break this decision point, it's basically going to immediately flip. And that decision point to go up to the upper targets will, in fact, flip to become the decision point to the lower targets. So while it did do all that, and that was awesome, the revisit, I personally, I'm not sure about you, not sure what you did today, but I was just not prepared for it to do it as quickly as it did because it broke the thing at 10 o'clock, came back and retested the decision point right here, a couple minutes later, and then dumped straight to first target. And then again, we missed second target. So, missed is missed in my book. I don't chase these things when they just don't cooperate. I've learned from years of trading that I just leave them alone. So I waited. And finally, it gave us a little minor decision here on the ES, right around 57. So I did take that. Told everybody in the room, like conservatively, we need to get out here at low mid. So it was still great. That was about a 13-point run. And then I tried it again at the minor has to hold. You probably can't really see it, it's sort of buried in here. Take that out and zoom in. So the minor has to hold was here. Tried it again and it overshot it by enough points that it took me out. So I only took the 2 trades today at the first start. And then I did come back. So I was pretty happy about this. I came back to my trading desk later in the day, and we had gotten, if I'll just extend this line here, we finally got up to the decision point. I told the room that this was going to be somewhat aggressive. Realistically, it would have been best if you could hit the resistance level up here. But again, we don't get to pick, so you got to take what they give you. So I did take this one down for another few points here later in the day. So overall, I'm positive. It's just not the day I was hoping for. So I don't know emotionally how you handle that, but I was just kind of like, just sad. I was like, oh, there's a lot of movement and not a lot to show in return. We'll take the wins where you can get them, right? Yeah. As far as the overnight here, we still have this pretty significant decision point down here at 69.21. That's going to hold true through the rest of the evening. So we'll see what they do with that. See if they come back and retest it in Globex. But that's. I mean, I don't think I missed anything. So the call outs that we basically had today were actually pretty minimal. Um, I could see that this is where they were trying to take it. That was kind of obvious down to this 48 range, this first target. Sadly, they just didn't give us a very clean, concise entry to get there. So that's how it worked out. NQ, I think, was very similar. Let me double check myself here. Let's zoom in. Or what we had talked about. Yeah, because it had the same setup, pre-market, decision point, all in the pre-market. This one was good. Broke the decision point, came back, retested, blew through the has to hold. Again, this is all before we even got into the room. And I do this on purpose so that it's always important to know where have you been, what's been achieved, what boxes have been checked, what hasn't, and so forth. But this one was good. I took the NQ long after it came back to the decision point. So my NQ trades were great. I had no issues with those at all because it came back to the decision point. Market gave us a conservative exit here, and then of course two more above it, which it never did. But either way, it was still good for almost 100 points on the NQ. So that was my NQ trade. And then same deal. If that decision point were to break, then it was going to be yet again an immediate flip to downside targets. And they did do it again. So I personally just was not prepared for it. It happened very quickly. But here at 10 o'clock, you can see that it broke our decision point. And here at 10:05, it came back and retested. And that's what we're after, looking for the retest always. And then it did have all the downside targets in the first scenario, which we had called out ahead of time, and it even got to the first target of the next bigger scenario. I don't think I did any. Yeah, I didn't. I didn't take anything else on the NQ. I left it alone for the rest of the day. But we did get the return back to the decision point here. Again, this was an aggressive short if you were so willing to take it. I had mentioned to everybody you can do that or wait till it gets up back to what is true resistance. And that one was perfect. That was a great trade. But I didn't trade that one. I just stuck to my lowly ELS for the moment. And then same deal, it's kind of got a pretty big decision point down here around 955, 54. So we'll just kind of see what they do with that in the overnight session. Yeah, what do you do emotionally on days like that where you're like, I'm expecting more, I just don't get it? Well, see, good for you. Yeah, I was just sad that it just went sideways like it did. I was like, man, there's so much potential in today. It just didn't play out the way that I would have liked. That's okay. It was still a green day. I'll take it, but just you just I don't know. Emotionally, you look at some of these days where they just tank or they run up, and you're just like, man, missed it. Oh well. Otherwise, yeah, that's kind of the recap. And then to all you in the audience, feel free to come on over, join us for a free trial. You can kind of see what we're all about, get Chartcast, get these levels on there. Again, it doesn't really matter how you necessarily get into your trades. Sometimes we have our own method, of course, but you can always lean on where we're headed. That's a huge part of the market. Right in the middle. See you guys.